You're good.
Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to walk you guys through today is a little bit of the EPTL pre-screening and some adjustments we've made. I know last week there were a few snafus that popped up. We've worked through those so that UAT can continue. But what we're going to start with first is, again, how you get here being from the management tools ETPL, and going into that page 1 will bring you to this first section here, our identify provider and user page. So from here, we're going to go through first how it's going to let you know someone is a duplicate. So let me give you an example here. If I enter in an FEIN that is already in the system, it's going to give us some duplicate information here. But once I do that and hit next, it pops up and lets you know the provider is already in the system. So please contact it. One of the adjustments or enhancements we added to that it would pull over some of that information for that provider so that you have some of that contact info. Okay. Let me check the chat here. Okay. Perfect. Well, outside of that, let's look at now adding a new provider or a new FEIN. So if I come in and do that piece, one that's not already in the system, and hit next, it's going to generate that email to me so that I can verify that email. So let me get that pulled up. Sends pretty quickly. Over. So you'll see this piece come through your email that you put in, and you would just hit verification link here, and it takes you back to that pre-screening process. So from here, it's going to take you to this page 4. It looks like I was kind of testing this earlier. So on our first page here, this is our provider description. So I will be walking you through a lot of the different options here of where our provider description will take us. It has been updated for UAT so that depending on which option you choose, it's going to take you to the appropriate section, kind of helping with the flow of those different screens. So if we come in here, put in our description of the program offered, but if we start working through this option 1 of a college or university that offers a program, for option 1, if we were to choose public and then start working our way through these screens, the next piece, it's always going to take you to the location. So where the training site is located. So you'll indicate that. And when you hit next, in this case, I chose a public university. So it's taking me into the public higher education screen. So from there, you're able to add those different documents. Be able to select the file, add that and save. Also be able to say these different instances as well, and then hit next. After you fill out that appropriate information and you're qualified and nothing is missing, it pops you into the sign up screen. Along the same lines here, to give you an idea of how this looks, if I were to use the private option and continue through these screens, it'll again ask me the location. And your questions, depending on what you choose, are going to be listed here, and those may differ depending on the flow. So in this case, this was a private higher education, so it popped me into the appropriate private higher education screen. And then from there, again, going into the sign up page. Or if I had chosen something that made me not qualified, it would pop up that. So we'll do an example of that here in a few minutes as well. Okay, so that is our examples of option 1. If we start moving into option 2 for more of the apprenticeship side of the house, we will have the option here from public or private as well. So if we click public and hit next, again, it will ask you the location in this flow, and then it moves into some other questions here where you may need to add documentation. Again, adding documentation. And then whenever you hit next, pops you into the sign up page. Similarly, if you do private, we'll take you through some similar screens, but different questions. So in this case, since this was a private apprenticeship program, it popped up some different questions for me to be able to do this. And then from there, hit next, and it'll take me to the sign up page. Okay, that is a little overview of the apprenticeship side. So if we move into the other category at this point, it will again ask us some additional follow-up questions that drop down if we choose that, going from is it a public provider, is it a private, non-for-profit, or for-profit? If we choose private and community-based organization and begin moving through here, again, it will ask for that location in every flow and then pull up the appropriate questions from there. And then whenever you hit next, to the sign up screen. One thing to notice here too at the top, it did in this case show our community-based or labor management organization. So you've got that pop-up screen up there. Same thing if we do a public provider and maybe a joint labor management organization and move through the screens, location, and then into some of these additional questions, upload any documentation as needed, and then into the sign up screen. So showing you that those questions will differ based on which screen that you pop into. And lastly, if we have the individuals put that the type of institute is not listed, it does pop up here that they need to contact their state ETPL coordinator. If they also hit next here, it lets them know that they are not qualified, and again, directs them to reach out to their local LWIA office. Outside of that, the only other functionality we really need to showcase here from the pre-screening aspect is, let's say you have a provider that got started, they came in here and started filling these things out, and at some point in the process they decided to hit this cancel button of canceling a case or canceling a submission. If they do that, it will let them know, since you canceled the process, you don't meet the requirements. You need to contact your local LWIA office or your ETPL coordinator. But that is really some of what we needed to give you guys a preview of today from the ETPL pre-screening, following last week's feedback on what we looked at. So can we answer any questions? Otherwise, we'll make sure we get this recording out to you to be able to distribute to those that missed.
Tara asked, who will get those emails and approve it to go to cycle 2? Laura, I'm gonna let you, so once the pre-screen is done, then we notify the locals or the state?
No one. I
Yeah.
apologize. And yes, this is completely new to the grant managers. They haven't been involved in this at all, but at least wants them to test it. So, when a provider comes in for WIOA, they're going to come in and make sure that they are an eligible training provider allowed under WIOA to be on the ETPL, the training provider list. So the first part, we didn't have this pre-screening part. We just had to look at them and judge based on what they submitted for their provider information and for their program information. Now we have this thing where we're pre-screening them. So we're going to go through and make sure that they can be on the list, that they are a provider. So when you're testing this is just the first part. So look at it as if one of your providers that happens to be on the ETPL, try to put them in with their information and make sure that it allows you to go forward, and make sure that the questions asked are accurate and needed. Check for typos, make sure the system's going to do what it's supposed to do and doesn't do what it's not supposed to do. The next step in the process will then be that the provider, it'll say, congratulations, you looks like you've passed pre-screening. Then they will go in and they will enter in their location information and their contact information. And then there will be a button for them to add their training program information. Once they enter their training program information and submit it, if it's a in-state program, it will go to the local ETPL coordinator, because they probably know more about their local providers than what we do. And if it's a distance learning only, online only, if it's out of state, if it's a RAP, those will go to the state ETPL coordinator for review. The local ETPL coordinator will review it based on the policy and then recommend it for approval to the state ETPL coordinator. Or they'll say, no, we don't think it meets the policy requirements. We don't recommend. It'll ultimately be up to the state ETPL coordinator to review the information and set it to approved, so that it then becomes available for selection on the career planning side when they're putting in the services in the system. Hopefully that was quick, down and dirty. Makes sense, Tara?
It does.
All right, thank you. And the checklist, for those that don't know, Shannon Hampton is working with other grant programs, and she created this checklist that they will use to, that they've been using to look at their providers when they're coming in to see about the quality of the providers and the programs. So ultimately, it would be nice if we could mirror that spreadsheet with what we're doing for the ETPL. So if you're looking at that spreadsheet and you're looking through this process as we're going through the process, and remember, this is just the very first part of it, it's not the entire process, then you want to make sure that you're noting that so that Shannon can update that checklist as need be.
I also dropped the resources into the chat for the UAT notebook, the release 3 cycle 1 guide for ETPL pre-screening, and then the link where you can actually go and do the testing. Olivia, would it be helpful to walk through briefly how to use the UAT notebook and stuff for the new folks for the grant team?
Yes, that's a good idea. I can get that pulled up if you'd like me to walk through that, unless you already have it up.
I do not have it up. I just have the links.
All right. So, we have the ETPL UAT guide. So this guide, and we'll make sure that, I think you guys have already gotten these links, but we'll make sure you have them. It walks you through the homework areas to test, which is what Kelly walked through. It gives you the link to how to access the UAT environment, which you should also have via email. And then it gives you the link to the notebook, which we'll look at in a minute. And then it just gives you general information on how you should log information in the notebook. You want to do it as you're completing UAT. Don't wait till you've finished UAT and then go in and add everything. You do it kind of in tandem as you find things or want to note things. Do that so you don't forget anything or lose anything. And try to be as detailed as possible. and include screenshots of things you see. We want to make sure we are able to replicate it and come up with appropriate solutions. So as much detail as we can get will help with that. If you have any issues, you can contact us. And just the expectations, test thoroughly, be detail oriented, and we're looking for bugs, issues, and then enhancements. We won't necessarily always be able to get every enhancement, but as we're categorizing the things in the notebook, we'll kind of put them in these three buckets. And then just best practices for effective UAT. Think like your end user, be specific and thorough, and provide context. I think Laura gave some great examples of try to use real cases, some real providers you have, make sure you're able to get them through. And then the rest of this just kind of gives you examples of the different screens you're seeing and the purposes of these screens. It's not supposed to be a step-by-step guide, but it's supposed to give you examples of what you're seeing. So if you feel like you're lost or not sure if you're in the right spot, you can refer back to this section of the guide. And then for the notebook, hold on. This is where you can log the issues that you found. So we're on the pre-screening. So we have different pages here as you find different issues or bugs or have questions, you can come into the appropriate section, whether it's regarding the provider description or the higher education section, and you can you'll just scroll down. Everybody's adding to this that's live. You'll scroll down and click, and then it's going to give you a little box. And you just type in what you want. We ask that you do put your name and the date so that if you have questions or anything, if we have questions, we know who added and can make sure we get them to you, get back to you to get that resolved. And then just the date so we know like, oh, this was added after we'd already reviewed everything. This document is live and is used by state and local folks as we go through testing. So you'll see things coming in as you guys are working through it. So these are just the different sections that you'll find as you're going through pre-screening. We try to break it out so it's not like just an overwhelming list of things, but we can kind of look at it more targeted. Any questions? All right.
When would you like to have this done?
Sorry, I accidentally muted myself. We would like, I'm opening my calendar to make sure I
I
get the right
think
date.
the deadline we were communicating, Olivia, was the 6th next week.
Okay,
Tuesday the
perfect.
6th.
That's what I thought. Yep. So you have almost a week to get through this, and then we'll be going on to the next part. Depending on where we get with updates that need to be made, that might get pushed off a little bit. But having this done as we start opening up other UAT, I know Taylor has some stuff coming, will be good.
And once we get the recording downloaded, we'll send out a follow-up email with all of these resources linked in there. So you have a quick, easy access to the notebook, the pre-screening guide, the link for the actual testing site, and then the recording too. But I did put those links also in the chat if you wanted to grab them.
Any other questions? All right, I think we can go ahead and stop the recording.